Hey everyone! So today we're talking about a group of people that most of the world barely knows exists. These are the Ainu, the original people of northern Japan. And if you've ever wondered who was actually living on those cold northern islands long before Japan existed as we know it, this is your answer. The Ainu homeland covers way more ground than people assume. It's not just Hokkaido, that big island at the top of Japan. Their territory historically stretched across the entire Sea of Okhotsk region, taking in Sakhalin Island, the Kuril Islands, the Kamchatka Peninsula, and parts of Russia too. They called all of this Ainu Mosir, which simply means the land of the Ainu.
The word Ainu itself just means human being, used specifically in contrast to Kamui, meaning divine spirits.
So, calling yourself Ainu was literally saying, I am human, as opposed to the gods all around you. Now here's a number that might catch you off guard. A 2023 official survey in Hokkaido only got 11,450 responses from people identifying as Ainu. But an unofficial estimate from 2002 suggested the real total could actually be 200,000 or more.
That massive gap exists because generations of forced assimilation were so thorough that huge numbers of people with Ainu ancestry today simply don't know it's part of their own family history. And that assimilation is really the dark heart of this whole story. The Japanese colonization of Hokkaido had been going on since at least the 1700s. But around the time of the Meiji Restoration in the 1800s, it accelerated hard. Families were pushed off their land, which meant abandoning traditional hunting and fishing. Their religion was banned. Children were placed in Japanese-only schools, where speaking the Ainu language was strictly forbidden. You can actually watch the language die in the numbers. In 1966, there were still around 300 native speakers. By the 1980s, that dropped below 100, with only 15 people using it daily. Today, there are no known native speakers of Hokkaido Ainu at all. The two other branches, Sakhalin Ainu and Kuril Ainu, were declared extinct even earlier in the 20th century. Gone. So who exactly were the Ainu before all of this happened? Historians trace them back to the ancient Jomon hunter-gatherers of Japan, going back roughly 14,000 years.
Their culture developed through what is called the Satsumon culture, later absorbing influences from the Okhotsk culture, a seafaring people whose last remnants basically got folded directly into the Ainu. What makes Ainu culture so interesting is that it's really a blend of three separate layers stacked on top of each other. Deep Jomon roots, centuries of Japanese influence, and a strong northern element from that Okhotsk contact. Their way of life was built entirely around the land and water. They hunted bears, sika deer, foxes, and seals. They fished for salmon, which they called kamui chep, meaning the god's fish, which tells you right away how sacred it was.
Every autumn, They would dry massive quantities of salmon to last through winter, and it also became a major trade good with the Japanese.
Their villages, called kotan, were set up along riverbanks and coastlines wherever food was reliably available.
Each with a clearly defined hunting and fishing territory that outsiders couldn't enter without permission. Spiritually, the Ainu were animists, believing everything in nature held a Kamu inside it. Their most important ceremony was the Iyomante, the bear-sending ceremony, which dates back to around the 11th century. Hunters would capture a bear cub and raise it as a member of the family for years, then ritually sacrifice it, believing that because the bear had been treated so well in life, its spirit would go on to protect and provide blessing. It's a window into how deeply the Ainu integrated the natural world into their spiritual life.
Here's where things get historically fascinating before turning tragic. For a long time, the Ainu were actually the crucial link between Russia and Japan. There's a record from 1778 of a Russian diplomatic delegation meeting with Japanese officials in Hokkaido. Even though a couple of the Russians could speak Japanese, the entire negotiation was conducted in Ainu. A Japanese official would speak broken Ainu, get corrected on the spot by a local Ainu speaker. And then, Ainu guides who came with the Russians would translate everything into Russian. These people were literally the communication layer between two competing empires. The Ainu also had a complex trade history with China going back centuries. Under the Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties, the Ainu of Sakhalin paid fur tribute to Chinese officials and received silk uniforms and goods in return. Some of those silk robes ended up being sold to Japanese merchants on Honshu as exotic luxury items. The Ainu were embedded in a regional economy that stretched across all of Northeast Asia. Then the Meiji government formalized everything in 1869 by establishing the Hokkaido Development Commission. The reasoning given was defending Japan from Russia, providing work for unemployed former samurai, and extracting natural resources.
Ainu land was redistributed to Japanese settlers to build Western-style industrial farms. The government called it colonization at the time, though it later got softened to opening up undeveloped land. And the human cost was devastating. Back in the 18th century, there had been around 80,000 Ainu. By 1868, only about 15,000 remained in Hokkaido, 2,000 in Sakhalin, and barely 100 across the entire Kural chain.
In the early 1800s alone, Ainu women were being forcibly separated from their husbands, subjected to rape or forced marriages, while Ainu men were shipped off on forced labor contracts lasting 5 to 10 years. Combined with repeated smallpox outbreaks, it was systematic destruction. In 1899, Japan passed the Hokkaido Former Aborigines Protection Act, and I want you to sit with that name for a second. Former Aborigines. The framing was that the Ainu had already been absorbed
and the government was now just formally managing the leftovers.
This law let the government seize Ainu land outright and gave Ainu people automatic Japanese citizenship.
Which sounds positive until you realize it simultaneously stripped them of any legal standing as an indigenous group.
The effects of that discrimination filtered down through generations. By 1993, the Ainu community in Hokkaido was receiving welfare at a rate 2.3 times higher than the general population.
High school enrollment was nearly 9% lower than average. Ainu households earned roughly 40% less than the national average.
These aren't just numbers. They're the downstream result of a century of deliberate suppression. The legal turning point came in 1997, when two Ainu landowners, Shigeru Kayano and Tadashi Kaizawa, took the Japanese government to court. After their land was seized to build the Nibutani Dam in Hokkaido, the Sapporo District Court acknowledged most of their claims, and for the first time in Japanese legal history, formally recognized the Ainu as an indigenous people. The dam stayed because it was already built, but the ruling was historic. That same year, Japan repealed the 1899 law and passed the Ainu Culture Law. Still, real recognition moved painfully slowly. It wasn't until 2019 that the Diet formally passed a law recognizing the Ainu as indigenous. And even then, political figures like then Deputy Prime Minister Taro Aso were still publicly claiming in 2020 that Japan had existed for 2,000 years with one language, one ethnic group, and one dynasty. A statement that completely erases the Ainu from Japan's own history. Today, there are genuine revival efforts. Shigeru Kayano, a native Ainu speaker and former parliament member, opened the first Ainu language school back in 1987. Second language learners have been growing. In 2020, the National Ainu Museum opened at the Upopoi complex in Hokkaido.
The name meaning singing together in a large group in Ainu, dedicated to preserving and promoting Ainu culture, history, and language.
And in 2023, a group of Ainu filed a lawsuit against the Japanese government to reclaim traditional salmon fishing rights that have been banned for over a century.
Arguing Japan never lived up to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that it signed back in 2007.
The Ainu built an entire civilization around the land and water of northern Japan and eastern Russia.
They were linguists, traders, spiritual thinkers, and the communication bridge between two empires. And then they were methodically stripped of almost everything that defined them.
Their story is still unfolding right now in courtrooms and classrooms and cultural centers across Hokkaido, and it deserves to be heard.